Tubesters, welcome to another one of my videos. It's me, Gav. Today we'll be at the shipyard and having a look at doing the last pieces of standing rigging on HMS Agamemnon here. I've been asked by a couple of people, roughly how do I go through the process, so I thought I would leave the last, do most of the standing rigging, which is the black stuff you'll see on my ships. And then leave the last bit till the end. Obviously stick a few bits on. It's not rocket science, it just can be very tedious or very time consuming and fiddly. It's not the type of thing I'm going to do a whole video on, because I'll only try to do it at the side of a camera or something. I'm only going to muck it up even more. So have a look at how I do this last piece of rigging. It might be of interest to you. Then when I'm ready to do the running rigging, which is the brown rigging, and that's the ropes that actually move the sails around and whatever, I'll do the same again. I'll do most of it off camera and then leave a small piece at the end. Again, once you've seen the black stuff being done, it's just sticking super glue onto the end of a painted brush bristle and offering it up to a place where you're happy with it being stuck to. So join me in a minute. We'll go down to the bench and we'll have a look, and we'll see how many times I can muck this up when it's on camera. So I'll see you in a minute. Right guys, thanks for joining me at the bench. This is going to turn into a complete car crash or shipwreck. I can just see it happening, and I refuse to do any editing, so let's just see how this turns out. Hey, we've knocked the camera once already. Again, I have no overhead camera rig, which means I'm having to do this right over the top of my video camera on a small tripod, and it's not really the way to go. As I say, until I've worked some way out, we're really in trouble for doing tutorials really. So here's our ship. Let's have a bit of a look in close up. We'll use this cocktail stick I'm using. So that's your mizzen mast, your main mast, your foremast, bowsprit. I've applied the brass, photo etched brass rat lines already. Now you'll be told by Langtons to put it on at the end. It's entirely up to you. I personally put them on now because I sometimes find you're trying to get your bristles to fit in different places, and sometimes, because normally you would drill holes in the ship at certain places to put your thread through. Well, I try and put roughly where that hole would be is where I put my bristles for particular parts of what they're asking us to do. And what I found before is when I actually come to place the rat lines onto the ship, I've usually put the bristles a couple of mil in the wrong place, and it really gets complicated then. So I tend to put them on at the beginning. What that means is then you are screening off the masts from where particularly the standing rigging, the black rigging, has got to go. But the other end of the other side of the coin is you can't generally put these in exactly where they're asking you to place them anyway. It really is, for me, I put them as close to where they're asking me as possible. You'll also find as in here, that sometimes the brass rigging rat lines won't actually go to the masts themselves. I very rarely be able to get them so they all sit properly. I usually end up with the very top pieces sitting proud off the side. I find that once the running rigging, the brown rigging, goes in, you don't really see that because there's so much rigging around it. It really obliterates the top, so it merges in quite nicely. You'll also see on these, on the rigging I've put on, bits where the tweezers have chipped off paint. There's nothing I can do about that. What I tend to do is go over them again before I put the next lot of rigging on. Touch them up with a bit of primer, or if you're happy to put obviously your paint straight on there, that's up to you. So you'll see little bits of white. Now what I've actually done, let's put this down for a moment, is how I do it is these are brush bristles They're from they're plastic. They're not like synthetic. They're just plastic, and they're from I believe a wallpaper paste brush. Now they are quite straight. They're flexible, but you could use some of the thinner paintbrush bristles, you know, as in DIY rather than what we use for painting figures with. I find it's a bit thin for my liking. This works for me, and this is what I run with. What I do is I get some black primer and spray it over, and I just use the black primer, to be honest with you. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a war game ship. We're not doing a scale model as such, so I just go with a black primer. As I say, you tend to have to touch it up with some black paint afterwards with all the chip marks or bits of glue mark from the super glue. I just I stick a piece of sellotape down, stick my bristles, cut them off my brush, stick them down onto the sellotape, and then fold the sellotape over on in itself. As you can see there, that's how I do it anyway, and then just cut them off as I need them. Now the brass rat lines, this is obviously an unopened lot. Obviously the wider ones, check how many you've got, how many, oh, I can't even remember the names. Sorry guys, I'm losing my thought here. But just count at the bottom here, and there obviously go to your larger, so the main masts, obviously get those. The mizzen mast gets the smaller amount, so there's 3 there, or 4, and that goes at that end. The main mast and the foremast tends to have the wider rat lines. Now what I'd suggest to you is, these bits here are almost like spacers, and I would actually cut them off and keep them on, because you'll find again that your rat lines won't often go up to where you want them to, and if you do leave a bit of this extra brass on, it gives you that extra couple of mil to play with. So yeah, and again with those, they're primed with an automotive primer and then touched up where needed. I tend to get blooming super glue all over it as I go, so they tend to get worked on. Now things that you'll need are a set of tweezers, whatever type of tweezers you like. Obviously I find these more pointy ones the better for application, rather than you know, broad tweezers. I use Gorilla Glue, that's a plug for them. I just find that any super glue gel will work for you. I prefer it than the runny stuff myself personally, because it'll sit there as a little blob. I use an old, obviously I do a lot of super gluing, and I use an old lid just to dab a bit of super glue. It's pre-done there. Cocktail stick for just applying the glue, and I believe that's us ready to roll. Oh, and obviously scalpel, craft knife of some description to cut your lengths of rigging to the correct size. Now, I've said this is not rocket science. Really, it's just grabbing your bristle in tweezers, and once you've done a few, you start getting an idea where you want to place them. So I'm leaving this completely intact just for demonstration purposes. Now what we're going to be doing here is running this piece of black rigging, put it down, and we're going to be putting just under this fighting top here where this other black rigging is coming in. Again, I believe the Langton rigging guide, which I would strongly recommend you buy, it's £14 or £15. There's not a lot in it, but it'll give you what you need to do your rigging, but it'll tell you to put it slightly further up. But again, you've just got to play with it. It's a wargaming ship. We're not using the standard thread, so we can't tie off in places, and I try and put my rigging where it'll be, where the glue will have a nice little corner, you know, for it to knit into. So you get a rough idea of where you want to go. I'm really sorry about all the messing around, but as I say, I'm doing this over a camera, so it's a bit hard to actually see. So we'll take her up about there, and it really is guesstimating all the time. There is no measuring in this really whatsoever, apart from holding it up and seeing where you want to go with it. you try and keep your tweezers off everything else where you can, because it'll chip tons of paint. Well, we're miles high with that at the moment, so again we'll take a bit more off. Again, you guys will say, Gav, you're crazy, there's a lot easier way of doing this, and it's this way and that way, and obviously you fill your boots. This is the way Gav does it. And we'll try her up there. No, sometimes with all your offcuts, by the way, keep all these little offcuts. That's miles too small, because you will use them on other bits of rigging. And even if you don't use them that time, put them in an envelope or a little plastic bag of some description, and you would bound to use them again on another vessel. Obviously the very tiny bits don't bother with, you don't really need those, but and we're very slightly short there, but to be honest with you, once that's in place and then the other riggings around it, it'll look what it's meant to be, if that makes sense. Now this is the only problem with my method. You're going to get super glue often in places you don't want it, like that. Oh, I knew this was going to be a disaster. It's bad enough doing it in real time without doing it on top of a camera. So you can't really see, but I know that that's wedged in there. I'm not going to play around with it with my tweezers, because I'll end up chipping paint or getting more glue on. She's stuck in there, and that's why I put the wrap lines on. It just gives you something for your bits of rigging to bond to. So that's number one in place. Now we go and do the reverse on the other side. Now I'd suggest, if you're not going to go out and buy the rigging guide from Langton's, you might want to obviously freeze frame one of the. I've got lots of ships. Some of them in the early days weren't very well lighted. I mean, this isn't still brilliant, but we're getting there bit by bit. But I'd suggest you to take a squiz at one of my previous ships, and you'll see where you should start your rigging, and it'll give you a basic, idea of where you want to go with things. As I say, it is really, this is why I didn't particularly want to do a whole vessel rigging, because it is just just taking literally sometimes a couple of mil off a piece of rigging and then retrying. I like to get this quite taut, because in real life that's what all this standing rigging is, as it suggests. It's there to keep those masts up. So again, we're going to try and get this in here without completely. This is the only problem using this method. You will get blooming glue everywhere. And again, just going to feel where that's gone. Sometimes you have to manipulate it round. Now I know that super glue will go off on that nicely. So that's two pieces, and I'll swap round again. There's going to be 3 applied to this. Well, 3 from port and starboard. So we're going to go a bit longer on the next one. Again, this is where that rigging guide will. I do this, although I do this, I do a fair few ships. Not so many this year, but I do a fair few ships. I don't actually. I've always got that rigging guide out. I can never remember. Again, we're offing it up. We're trying to put it under there, but still attach it there. Might just have to take a mil or so off that. It usually takes me to do the standing rigging. I would guesstimate again, because I don't time myself. I reckon it takes me about 3 hours, maybe 2 if you're really lucky, and obviously depending on the ship size. Although you'd be doing the same amount on a frigate as you would on this 64 gun. Now again, that's supposed to have gone all the way up to the top of that. So it doesn't matter if it's dropped behind there, because that's good. That'll be a good union. And we've tucked her in behind this wrap line, which again, so it's not gone all the way under there like it's supposed to. But again, what you're after is, again, you're showing the signs of the rigging, so you'll be able to see that there'll be standing rigging going up the side of this wrap line. That it's 4 or 5 mil short. It really won't make much difference when you get the rest of the rigging on. And again, the other side. Get our trusty scalpel again. Sorry if you hear lots of snoring in the background. I've got my two pups in the or two dogs in the room. They're always with me and they're snoring their heads off. I think what we'll do is we'll just go through these three, I believe. I don't really see much point in doing much more, because as I say, there's nothing much I can actually teach you. It's pretty self-explanatory. You know, you either, as I say, take something like my past ships and, you know, freeze frame it and blow it up and see where I put my rigging, or you get yourself one of the Langton guides, or the Langton guide. Because at the end of the day, Langtons, as we all know, they're not cheap. Neither are the GHQ ones, and you know, if you're going to spend your money doing these ships, you might as well spend your 15 quid and get yourself the rigging guide at the same time. Right, now we're going to go for the longest now. Which we want to run right up to the top here. I must admit, if you had to write down what the prerequisites for rigging one of these little ships, even with this paintbrush bristles, you need patience. Well, I don't have a lot of that. You need a steady hand. I don't have that either. If I can do it, any of you guys out there can do it. Oh, you bugger. What you got to do your best to do, guys, if you can, is not get any of the super glue on the sails if you can help it, because you know what it's like. It blobs up. And it doesn't look great after you've done a nice job on your sails. It happens to me over and over again. Again, this is not the the correct way. You know, obviously guys have spent years rigging them with cotton, and I tried it. I tried it, and it wasn't so much of, yeah, obviously my first efforts did really look rubbish, but you could have stuck with it. It was just the time it was taking. It was taking, I think I worked it out about 40 odd hours to do a ship. it was soul destroying, you know. So I would suggest to you, you know, if you can't be bothered doing that, have a go at this way. I mean, this is still going to take you, what, let's see, as I said, about 3 hours to do the black rigging. There's a bit more involved in the brown rigging, the running rigging, so that's going to probably take you, say, 5 hours. Right, guys, well that's the the foremast got its standing rigging in. Sorry, way out of shot again. Let's not use the sticky end of the cocktail stick, we'll be getting glue everywhere. Now I'm just debating whether we carry on camera and do the last 3 or 4 along here. Again, it's nothing like watching somebody stick painted bristles to a small ship, is there? Hey? Are we not entertained, we ask ourselves. So guys, I think we'll carry on. What I'll do is I'm gonna, well, in fact, actually, just before we start, let's just see if I can cruise out of here again without knocking the camera over. That's the, let me see if I can just hold this loosely for a minute. That's your guide and assembly to do your ships through Langtons. I'm not going to open it up because I'm not going to break copyright, and they're only a small outfit, and I'm not going to give away free rigging books online. So, but it's around 14 or 15 quid, I believe. It's been a while since I bought it, but it's not particularly thick. But if you're serious on doing these type of things, then I would suggest you give it a go. Right, so give me a minute to cut up a few more bits and pieces and put them to one side, and we'll have a go on the last bit of rigging from the foremast down to the bowsprit. At least you'll see it all put in then. Okay, so join me in a second. Right, thanks for joining me again. Thanks for sticking with it if you've still got the will to live. Right, I've done a deft bit of cutting offline. We'll get our first one in with my shaky hands, trying ever so hard not to get it caught on the sails. There's one. Well, I'm actually wondering whether we take that off and actually place around the other side. That might help us, Gav. Again, if you can get anywhere where you can obviously lodge the end of your bristle to, it'll give you that bit of extra. Right, well, we're going to be putting the other. There's another 2 or 3. 1, 2, 3. There's another 3 to go on. So we're going to put them all up on this side of the ship. It seems right as the wind's blowing against that side. Right, sorry if I'm seem preoccupied. I'm just continuously looking over to my rigging guide just to see what we're going to do next. Right, she's telling me we need to be, so we get that in focus up here and down there. Now again, these sails that you see, they're not going to be, in real life, they wouldn't be connected to this standing rigging. What we'll be doing later on is putting some brown rigging on, and hopefully getting them. You can't. I've a couple of times I've managed to get it where it does look like it's, the sails are attached to the rigging that you've put, the running rigging you've put to the side, and sometimes it doesn't. It really is luck of the draw. So spreading bloody glue. There we go, that one's in place. Go for our next one. is halfway along the bowsprit. It really is. Some of it is guesstimating. You know, you've just got to put where you think it roughly, right? Where you roughly think the guide's telling you. Well, sometimes I cut them short. In this case, way too short. So again, we'll put her to one side because it can be used again. That was getting cocky, you see. I was thinking, oh yeah, I've got my eye in. So let's go back to a larger piece. And he's saying it's going to the top actually from here. So I think we'll go from the top there down to where this sail's tied off. So we need to remove a couple of mil at the end. Other things that you might find useful when doing this is a nice strong brew and a lovely packet of gummy bears. You can't beat working on figures or ships with a packet of Haribo gummy bears. You'll have no teeth left like me at the end of it, but oh, pants. See, this is the one problem, and then you get glue everywhere. What you need though is quite a, you know, a mil or two of say on here. You wouldn't want to have that balancing precariously on the top because you won't get a decent union. I find the glue holds alright with the paint, as it does say on the thing. I believe you can put it to paint. Occasionally I get the odd one come loose, but you'll be surprised, especially when the running rigging is in. Again, just attach a bit of extra glue if you think it warrants it. Bearing in mind you'll be having brown rigging going all around that as well, so it all strengthens itself. I've you know, tapped away at once, especially when you get the running rigging on, because it literally will be coming out here, so it's quite exposed. But generally I've knocked them and everything, and it's very occasionally if I've had a weak attachment point, one might come adrift, but you know, apart from that, I don't tend to have a problem with them, to be honest. Oh yes, I haven't gamed with them. I'm the guy with a box full of ships and that have never seen action, but that's just like my figures, so nothing new there. And then the last one on this 3 or 4, we'll run it up where, I don't know if you can see, so I keep coming out of shot here. So there's a little bulge in the mast there. I believe that's where they would run another sail at the top, another yard. So although it's not present, that's where I think the diagram's showing me to put it. So that's good enough for me. And again, always offer it up first without any glue on, unless you really are, you know where it's going. I'm going to leave a tiny bit extra on this one because it's going right to the point of the bowsprit. And again, that slightly extra millimetre or so will give you a better bond. Sorry, I keep going out of shot here. As I say, I'm right over the top of my camera. This is definitely not the way I wanted to do a tutorial. As I say, it doesn't bode well. I don't think I'll be doing tutorial on the figures yet until I can get, somehow I need to have that overhead view. I'll keep plugging away at it, seeing what we can get. What I tend to do as well is that might need a touch more paint, touch more glue on it, but let it go off and always put a tad more on before we start work with the other rigging. Right, we've got another couple to do on the bowsprit itself, and then we're actually complete on the standing rigging. This is where our smaller offcuts come in handy. Let's have a see. We need to be doing one from this. Sorry if I don't get two nautical terms on you guys. I don't know them all. I'll be honest. I'm all right once I've read like a Patrick O'Brien book, Master and Commander type thing. I'm alright for a few weeks, and then obviously you start doing other work and it all goes, when you get to my time of life, things don't stick in your head like they're supposed to. Again, we're just offering that up. Let's just try and move her over slightly. You will, as I say, knock paint off these bristles with I think we might be able to get away with that. Let's have a go. With you will knock paint off with your tweezers occasionally. It's just how it is. And again, that does look like it's sticking up a bit, but we'll be putting some, if my memory serves me right, we'll be putting some running rigging on that. And again, you've got a slight, but you would, although there's a slight bulge out there, you'd have that if you were putting thread round it. So in fact, you'd have a fair amount of thread round it. So right, guys, there we go. That's our standing rigging complete. Although I'm about to find something that's not been attached. As I was saying, I like to show you stuff warts and all. So here we have a piece, if you notice, that's not attached to anything. Which I've just noticed the end of the white piece of bristle there. If I try and push that back, it's not going to work, so I might actually leave that. She's actually stuck lower down, I think. So once that's painted black, sorry, we're going out of shot again. Once these white bits are painted black, which I'll be doing in probably a couple of hours once this glue started getting set on the other stuff, it will be, you know, if I can do some extra glue in, great, and if I can't, I'll leave it in place. It's not hurting anything. It's glued in about 2 other places. And as I say, you'll be surprised when you start seeing the running rigging going around. A lot of this black rigging is hidden from view, and the rat lines. So guys, I'm really sorry to bore the pants off you, but a couple of guys had asked how it was done. I would heartily recommend you get the Langton's rigging guide though. As I say, I'm following the guide, but I put things where roughly artistic license, let's call it that way. So, as I say, just to quickly run through it again, standing rigging here is here to support the main mast, well, the masts. It's black because it's usually tar coated. It never moves. It's there well, it only moves when it's been repaired or whatever. The words that escaped me before were blocks, and they do actually put these little round blocks shapes in, and normally they would be attached to chains below them, which obviously it's not worth showing on, when they actually do the brass photo etch. Again, sometimes I can get the photo etch to marry up quite well, other times not. I thought I might have a few problems with this because I'd actually stepped the mast back. As I think I said on another video, it was the captain's prerogative to how he wanted his masts. I believe, again, I'm a guy that gets seasick running a cold water tap, so I don't go on sailing ships, but I believe the farther you incline the mast back, the quicker the ship can go, but it puts a lot more pressure on the masts. So it's up to the captain and the sailing master to have a conflab and see what they want to do. You'll see again little chips. I put a tiny chip in there. They tend to catch when you're working on them. What I normally do is I will go over the black paint before I start the other rigging, just because obviously it'll be a bit of a devil to get to when you actually start that. But I don't actually touch up the rest of the ship until all the rigging's complete, and then I go through the whole ship, touching all that up. Once we've done the standing rigging, we'll have a go on the base. There's not a great lot to do on the base. All I do is run a roll up a very thin worm shape green stuff, and I'm sure you could use something like that's gone as well, but anyway, some type of filler, anyway, whatever you want to do, put it under there, and I just give it a wave shape as if the water's washing up under the side of the ship. You can make this is a resin base from Langton's. It's got ripples in, it doesn't show up very well on the grey primer. I've done it on some where I've actually put wave crests in with green stuff, but generally I leave it as it is. So guys, thanks for joining me in HMS Agamemnon. As I say, she's looking a bit tatty at the moment, but hopefully it'll all come to life in the next few videos. So thanks a lot for stopping by and taking a look. And if you thought there were some boring videos out there, you obviously hadn't checked this one out first. So you take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you soon on another video. Cheers.